Marcus was a 17-year-old boy who lived in a small town where everybody seemed to know everybody else. He was quiet by nature, often keeping to himself, but he had big dreams. His dream was to go to college one day, study business, and make a life that was bigger than the one he had now. To save money for that dream, Marcus worked part-time at a gas station on the edge of town. Every evening after school, he would walk there with his backpack, his school books still inside, and spend hours standing behind the counter or cleaning the pumps outside. It was not the most exciting job, but Marcus took pride in doing it well. He was polite to every customer, respectful to his boss, and careful with the money he handled. On one particular evening, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Marcus was sweeping the small parking lot, humming a tune quietly to himself. A few cars pulled in, people came to fill up their tanks, and everything seemed normal. But what Marcus did not know was that this evening would change the course of his life. A police car pulled up to the gas station. Inside was Officer Dalton, a man known in the town for being tough, sometimes too tough. He carried himself with an air of authority that made people uneasy. Many whispered about him, but few dared to say anything aloud. He had a way of making his presence felt, even when he didn't need to. Dalton stepped out of his car, his boots hitting the pavement with a heavy sound. He glanced around the gas station as though he was already looking for trouble. His eyes settled on Marcus, who was still sweeping near the door. "Evening, officer," Marcus said politely, lowering his broom. He had always been taught to be respectful, especially to people in uniform. Dalton didn't respond to the greeting right away. Instead, he looked Marcus up and down as if judging him. Finally, he asked, "What are you doing here?" Marcus was taken aback by the question. "I work here, sir. Just finishing up some cleaning." Dalton gave a short nod, but his expression remained sharp. Working here, are you? We'll see about that." Marcus didn't know what he meant, but he felt a chill run down his spine. He tried to stay calm, focusing on his broom and the job he had to finish. A few customers nearby noticed Dalton's tone and shifted uncomfortably, but continued with their business. Just then, a woman hurried inside the gas station, searching through her purse. She soon returned to the officer, looking distressed. "Excuse me, officer. I think I lost my wallet. I was sure I had it when I came to pay." Dalton's eyes lit up in a way that made Marcus uneasy. He looked directly at the teenager. "Lost your wallet, huh? Let's see if this young man knows anything about it." Marcus froze. "Sir, I didn't see any wallet. I was outside the whole time." Dalton ignored his words. He stepped closer, towering over Marcus. "Backpack. Let me see your backpack." Marcus clutched the strap of his bag nervously. Inside were his textbooks, a notebook, and a sandwich his mom had packed. "Sir, I promise I don't have anything that doesn't belong to me." "I didn't," Dalton cut him off sharply. "Open it now." Marcus hesitated, but he knew he had no choice. Slowly, he unzipped the bag and opened it wide. Dalton reached inside without asking, moving books and papers around roughly. For a moment, Marcus thought the officer would close the bag and realize he was innocent. But then, in a swift and quiet motion, Dalton slipped something inside. A wallet. Marcus's eyes widened. He had seen it. He wanted to speak up, but fear gripped his throat. Dalton pulled the wallet out of the bag and held it high. "Well, look at this, found it. Exactly where I thought it would be." The woman gasped, covering her mouth. "That's mine." "That's my wallet." Marcus felt his world collapse around him. "No, that's not true. I didn't put that there. He put it." Dalton's voice boomed louder, drowning out Marcus's protests. "Caught red-handed. You think you can just take things that don't belong to you? Not on my watch." Customers at the pumps turned their heads, watching the scene unfold. Some whispered among themselves, unsure of what to believe. A few pulled out their phones and began recording. Marcus's heart pounded in his chest. He could feel his face grow hot with shame and fear. He looked around, hoping someone would speak up, but no one did. They just watched, silent witnesses to what was happening. Dalton grabbed Marcus by the arm and yanked him forward. "You're coming with me," he said coldly. "Please, sir, I didn't do it." Marcus pleaded, his voice cracking. "I swear I didn't touch that wallet. I didn't steal anything." But Dalton had already pulled out a pair of handcuffs. He snapped them around Marcus's wrists with a metallic click that echoed in Marcus's ears like a final judgment. The broom Marcus had been holding clattered to the ground, forgotten. The woman retrieved her wallet from Dalton, clutching it tightly. She looked uncertain now, perhaps even doubtful, but she said nothing. Dalton marched Marcus toward the police car. Marcus's backpack swung from his shoulder awkwardly as he stumbled forward, the cuffs digging into his skin. The people at the gas station stared. Some recorded, others turned away, and a few shook their heads as though this was just another sad story in their town. Marcus's thoughts raced. His mother was going to be devastated. His sister Angela would be furious. He had worked so hard to keep his life straight, to stay out of trouble, and in a single moment it had all been destroyed. He tried one last time, his voice desperate. "Please, somebody believe me. I didn't do this." But no one stepped forward. The doors of the police car opened and Marcus was pushed inside. The sound of the door slamming shut echoed in his ears. From the back seat, Marcus looked out the window. The gas station lights flickered. The people faded into the distance, and Officer Dalton climbed into the front seat with a satisfied look. Marcus felt small, powerless, and trapped in a nightmare that wasn't his fault. The ride to the station began, and with every passing streetlight, Marcus wondered how anyone would ever believe him. He didn't know it yet, but the truth was about to come from the most unexpected place, the person who cared about him more than anyone else in the world. The ride to the station felt longer than it really was. Marcus sat in the back of the police car, his wrists tight in the cold cuffs, his heart pounding like a drum. He leaned against the window, watching the familiar streets pass by, but they no longer felt safe. Every house, every store, every passing light seemed distant, as though he had been cut off from the life he once knew. Officer Dalton drove with a smug look on his face. Every so often he glanced at the rearview mirror, as if enjoying the sight of Marcus trapped in the back seat. "You thought you were smart, didn't you?" Dalton muttered. "But I don't let kids like you slip through my fingers." Marcus swallowed hard. He wanted to yell, to scream that he was innocent, but he knew Dalton wouldn't listen. The memory of the wallet being planted in his bag replayed over and over in his mind, each time making his stomach twist. He pressed his forehead against the glass, whispering softly, "This isn't fair." When they arrived at the police station, Dalton roughly pulled Marcus out of the car. The station was buzzing with activity, officers at their desks, phones ringing, papers shuffling. But all eyes turned for a moment when Dalton walked in with a teenager in handcuffs. To everyone there, it looked like just another arrest. To Marcus, it was the most humiliating walk of his life. Dalton pushed Marcus into a small holding room with pale gray walls and a metal bench. He removed the cuffs but locked the door behind him. Marcus sat down, rubbing his sore wrists, feeling more helpless than ever. His backpack had been taken from him. Lying on a desk somewhere outside, the evidence twisted into a weapon against him. Outside, Dalton filled out his report, speaking loudly enough for others to hear. Caught him red-handed. Wallet was right in his bag, just as I thought. Some officers nodded, not questioning his story. Dalton had been on the force for years, and his word carried weight. Few dared to challenge him. Marcus sat quietly in the room, trying to breathe evenly. He thought of his mother, how she would react when she found out. She always told him to stay out of trouble, to keep his head down, to be careful. And he had done all of that. But trouble had found him anyway. After what felt like hours, the door opened. Dalton came in holding a clipboard. "You know what happens now, don't you?" he said. His tone was cold, almost mocking. "You're going to have this on your record. A thief at 17. That'll follow you around forever." Marcus looked up, his voice shaking. "I didn't do it. You know I didn't do it. You put that wallet in my bag." Dalton smirked. "Careful what you say, kid. Nobody's going to believe your story over mine. I'm the officer. You're just a boy who got caught." Marcus felt a lump form in his throat. He wanted to fight back, but he realized Dalton was right, at least for now. To the world outside this room, Dalton was the respected officer, and Marcus was the accused. Just then the door opened again. Another officer stepped in. "Dalton, the boy's mother is here. She's demanding to see him." Dalton sighed, rolling his eyes. "Of course she is. Fine, bring her in." Moments later, Marcus's mother entered the room. Her face was pale, her eyes filled with tears. She rushed to her son, wrapping her arms around him tightly. "Marcus, are you all right?" "What happened?" Marcus buried his face against her shoulder, feeling both relieved and ashamed. "Mom, I didn't do it. I swear I didn't." She stroked his hair, whispering, "I believe you, baby. I believe you." Then she turned sharply toward Dalton. "What is this?" "Why is my son here?" He's a good boy. He wouldn't steal anything. Dalton crossed his arms. Ma'am, the wallet was in his bag. We found it ourselves. The evidence speaks for itself. She shook her head, her voice trembling with anger. No, that doesn't make sense. He's never been in trouble. He helps me at home, he studies hard, he works after school. This is wrong. Dalton's voice grew harder. I understand it's difficult to hear, but the facts are the facts. You should be grateful we caught him before he went further down the wrong path. Marcus's mother gasped, tears streaming down her face. She wanted to argue more, but she realized Dalton would never listen. Instead, she held her son close and whispered, "Don't worry. This will not be the end of it. We will fight this." After a short visit, she was forced to leave the room. Marcus's heart broke watching her go, knowing she was carrying the weight of fear and anger for him. Meanwhile, outside the station, the story was spreading. The people who had recorded the arrest at the gas station were uploading their videos online. Some comments supported Marcus, pointing out how calm and respectful he seemed even as he was taken away. Others doubted him, saying maybe Dalton was right. The town was beginning to talk, and whispers of injustice were growing louder. Back in the holding room, Marcus sat alone again. The hours dragged on. Every sound of footsteps in the hallway made him wonder if someone was coming to help him, or to make things worse. He thought of his sister, Angela. She was busy at City Hall, always attending meetings, always working late. He wondered if she even knew what had happened yet. The thought of her finding out made his chest ache. She had always believed in him, always told him he was capable of great things. If she saw him like this in a holding room accused of theft, how would she feel? Late that night, Dalton returned. He leaned against the door frame with a look of satisfaction. "You'll stay here until we finish processing. Maybe a night in a cell will teach you a lesson." Marcus met his eyes with quiet strength. "The truth will come out. People will know I didn't do this," Dalton chuckled darkly. "We'll see, kid. We'll see," but Marcus wasn't entirely wrong. Outside the walls of the police station, events were moving quickly. His mother had already called Angela, and Angela was on her way. She didn't know the full story yet, but she knew one thing for certain. Her brother was not a thief. And she would not let him be treated like one. For now, Marcus sat in the quiet of the holding room, the hum of fluorescent lights above him, the weight of injustice heavy on his shoulders. Yet somewhere deep inside, a flicker of hope remained. He didn't know what was coming, but he clung to the belief that someone somehow would stand up for him. Angela Carter sat in her office at City Hall, the late evening light casting long shadows across the room. She had been reviewing the city budget, preparing for the next day's meeting when her phone rang. The caller ID showed her mother's name. Her heart skipped a beat. Her mother rarely called her so late. "Angela, it's urgent." Her mother's voice trembled over the phone. "It's Marcus. He's been arrested at the gas station. Officer Dalton. He claims Marcus stole someone's wallet." "I don't know what to do." Angela froze. Her younger brother Marcus in trouble, arrested? She could feel the tension in her chest, the pulse of worry that seemed to rush through her veins. "Mom, calm down. Tell me exactly what happened," she said, her voice steady even though panic bubbled inside. Her mother explained everything she knew. The encounter at the gas station, Dalton planting the wallet, Marcus's protests, the handcuffs, the humiliation, and the fear in Marcus's eyes. Angela's jaw tightened with anger. She knew Dalton had a reputation for being harsh, but she hadn't imagined he would go so far as to frame her own brother. "Stay where you are," Angela said firmly. "I'm coming to the station right now. Don't let anyone talk you into signing anything or leaving. I'll handle this." She hung up and grabbed her coat, moving quickly through City Hall. She felt a mix of rage and urgency. Her brother's innocence had to be protected, and the officer responsible needed to be held accountable. As she drove to the station, her mind raced. She had been elected mayor less than a year ago, and had worked tirelessly to make a difference in the community. Yet now she faced a personal challenge unlike any she had encountered in office, a loved one being wronged by someone sworn to uphold the law. The streets blurred past her as she thought about Marcus, his quiet nature, his respect for others, his dreams of college. How could anyone accuse him of theft? Meanwhile, at the police station, Marcus sat in the holding room. He had spent hours pacing the small space, trying to remain calm but feeling the weight of despair pressing down on him. Every so often he pressed his hands to his face, wishing the world could see the truth, wishing someone would come and tell Dalton he was wrong. The door suddenly opened, and Dalton strode in. He looked smug, confident that his version of events would go unchallenged. "You're lucky your mother showed up when she did," he said. "Otherwise, you'd have spent the night here." Marcus's stomach tightened. "I didn't do anything." "You know I didn't. She knows it too. Someone has to stop this." Dalton shrugged. "Someone? You're on your own here, kid. Welcome to the real world." But just as Dalton turned to leave, the station doors burst open, and a commanding voice rang through the hallway. "Officer Dalton, hold on." Angela walked in, her presence immediately filling the room. She wore her mayoral badge, her posture firm and confident, and her eyes locked on Dalton. The officers in the station paused, surprised at the sudden authority in the room. Dalton looked puzzled, unsure who was addressing him with such strength. "Who are you?" Dalton asked, his voice cautious. Angela's gaze didn't waver. "I'm the mayor of this town. And this young man is my brother." Marcus's eyes widened. Relief and hope surged through him. He had not expected his sister to arrive so quickly, and certainly not to confront Dalton directly. Dalton's expression changed from smugness to disbelief. "Your brother?" he stammered. "Yes, Marcus is my brother," Angela said firmly, "and he is innocent. I want to see the evidence that you claim proves otherwise." Dalton's mouth opened as if he wanted to speak, but no words came out. The other officers exchanged glances, unsure of what to do. Angela took a step forward, holding her badge up for emphasis. "I will review all reports, all evidence, and all video footage from the gas station. This situation will not stand if it is unjust." Angela demanded that Dalton provide the surveillance footage from the gas station. Dalton hesitated, trying to maintain control, but Angela's presence made him uneasy. The tension in the station was palpable. Every officer watched silently as the mayor stood before them, a force to be reckoned with. Meanwhile, Marcus watched his sister, a mix of awe and gratitude filling his chest. He could see her determination, the way she would not back down, the way she would protect him at any cost. He felt his fear begin to fade, replaced by a cautious hope. Angela and Dalton moved toward the room with the surveillance equipment. She reviewed the footage carefully, frame by frame. Her eyes narrowed as she saw the moment Dalton had planted the wallet in Marcus's bag. The officer's movements were deliberate, almost hidden, but they were there. Undeniable proof of the setup. Her voice was calm but sharp as she spoke to Dalton. "Explain this." "How does this happen?" "You placed the wallet in his bag. There is no other explanation." Dalton's face grew red with anger and embarrassment. He stammered, trying to come up with an excuse, but Angela was relentless. "This is not a matter of opinion. This is the truth caught on camera. Your actions have consequences." One by one, the witnesses who had been present at the gas station were brought in. Initially, they were hesitant to speak, afraid of Dalton's authority. But Angela's presence gave them courage. They recounted what they had seen. Dalton acting suspiciously, the way he moved his hand before discovering the wallet, and the unease he caused everyone around him. Their statements, combined with the video, painted a clear picture. Marcus had been framed. Dalton's confidence crumbled. His colleagues began to distance themselves, unsure of whether they should defend him. The officer who had seemed untouchable now stood exposed, his reputation and career in jeopardy. Angela turned to Marcus. "You're safe now, Marcus. This will not continue. Justice will be done." She smiled at him gently, her eyes warm. Marcus felt a weight lift off his shoulders. He could finally breathe again, knowing that his sister was here to fight for him. The mayor's commanding presence and clear sense of justice shifted the mood in the station. Officers who had previously been silent now nodded in agreement, acknowledging the truth of Angela's words. Dalton stood there powerless, realizing that his actions had been witnessed, recorded, and would not be ignored. Angela spoke firmly, addressing the room. "No one is above the law. No one has the right to abuse power, especially not those sworn to protect. This situation will be corrected and Marcus's name will be cleared. Let this be a lesson. Honesty and integrity must guide our actions." Marcus felt pride swell inside him, not for what had happened, but for his sister's courage, her unwavering commitment to fairness, and her determination to ensure that truth prevailed. The fear that had gripped him for hours began to dissolve, replaced by a sense of hope and security. As the night wore on, Marcus was finally released from the holding room. Dalton was taken aside for questioning, and other officers began documenting the events that had transpired. Marcus walked beside his sister, feeling her steady hand on his shoulder guiding him through the chaos. Outside the station, the town would soon learn the full story. Social media posts that had spread confusion and doubt were now supplemented with the truth. Marcus was innocent, and the officer who had tried to frame him would face consequences. For Marcus, this night had been terrifying, humiliating, and unfair. But through it all, one thing remained constant: the love and protection of his sister Angela. She had turned the tide, showing that justice could prevail even when the odds seemed stacked against him. And as they walked into the cool night air together, Marcus felt a spark of determination. One day, he thought, he would find a way to ensure that others in his community would not have to endure what he had gone through. That determination, combined with his sister's guidance and support, would shape the path ahead, one of courage, fairness, and resilience. The tension in the police station was thick, almost suffocating as Angela Carter stood before Officer Dalton. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered slightly, casting a sterile glow over the room, but nothing could dim the authority she exuded. Dalton, once confident and smug, now shifted nervously on his feet. For the first time, he felt the weight of accountability pressing down on him. Angela didn't raise her voice, but her words carried the sharpness of steel. "Officer Dalton, you need to explain yourself. How does a wallet appear in my brother's backpack if he never touched it?" Her gaze pierced him, unwavering. Dalton's mouth opened, then closed. He cleared his throat, trying to maintain some semblance of control. I don't know what you're talking about, Mayor Carter. I followed procedure." Angela shook her head slowly, disbelief mixed with anger. "Procedure doesn't include planting evidence. Procedure doesn't include humiliating an innocent teenager in front of witnesses. The footage proves your actions. You cannot deny it." Other officers in the room shifted uneasily. The atmosphere had changed. What had started as routine law enforcement was now a spectacle of truth and justice. Dalton realized he could no longer rely on fear or authority alone. The video footage, eyewitness accounts, and Angela's presence made that impossible. Angela motioned to the officer who had been operating the surveillance system. "Show everyone the footage from the gas station. Let them see what really happened." The small screen flickered to life and the room went quiet. Every eye fixed on the monitor as the sequence played. Dalton could see the moment he had reached into Marcus's backpack before pulling out the wallet. The movement was subtle but unmistakable. Gas station patrons looked on, shocked. Dalton's colleagues were silent, their faces pale. Angela's voice cut through the tension. "Do you see this, Dalton? This is your action. This is truth captured. My brother is innocent. You framed him. This is not a mistake. It is deliberate misconduct." Dalton's face turned red, his jaw tightening. He tried to speak, to justify his actions, but no words came out that could undo what had been revealed. For the first time, he felt powerless in a situation he had always controlled. Witnesses from the gas station were brought forward one by one. At first, they hesitated, glancing nervously at Dalton, fearing repercussions. But Angela's presence emboldened them. They described what they had seen. Dalton acting strangely, reaching into Marcus's bag without reason and planting the wallet. Their statements matched the footage perfectly. Each testimony added weight to the undeniable truth. Dalton's arrogance crumbled with every word. He had thought he could manipulate the situation, intimidate the witnesses, and rely on his badge to protect him. Now all that power had evaporated, leaving him exposed. Angela turned to Marcus, who was watching the events unfold with wide eyes. She knelt slightly to meet his gaze. "Marcus, stay calm. You're safe. This ends tonight." Marcus nodded, relief flooding through him. He had endured hours of fear and uncertainty, but now the tide had turned. Dalton's voice finally broke the heavy silence. "Mayor Carter, this isn't fair. You're using your position." Angela's eyes narrowed. "Fairness has nothing to do with my position. It has to do with truth and justice. You abused your authority, Dalton. You humiliated a child, planted evidence, and tried to ruin a life. That is what is unfair." Other officers, previously silent, began murmuring agreements. Some expressed disappointment, others astonishment. Dalton realized that support for him had vanished. The environment that had once shielded his arrogance now surrounded him with witnesses who saw him clearly for the first time. Angela took a deep breath, her voice firm and unwavering. "Dalton, effective immediately. You are suspended pending investigation." You will not patrol these streets, and an internal review will determine the consequences of your actions. No one is above the law, not even those sworn to protect it. Dalton's face drained of color. He had imagined he could intimidate, manipulate, and control, but Angela's decisive action had stripped him of every advantage. His career, his reputation, his authority, all were now in jeopardy. Marcus watched silently, a mix of fear, relief, and awe swirling in his chest. The nightmare of being falsely accused had finally shifted toward justice. His sister had not only believed him, but had also taken the necessary steps to expose the truth and protect him from further harm. Angela turned to the room, addressing all present. Let this be a lesson. We are here to serve the community, to protect every citizen equally. Abusing power for personal bias or prejudice will not be tolerated. Marcus's innocence is now clear, and the truth must guide all our actions. Outside the station, news of the confrontation began to spread. Social media posts quickly shared the footage and eyewitness accounts, highlighting the bravery of Angela and the innocence of Marcus. The community reacted with outrage toward Dalton and support for the young teenager. The story became a symbol of accountability and the importance of standing up for what is right. Angela accompanied Marcus as he was formally cleared of all accusations. Officers who had witnessed the events but had remained silent were now encouraged to speak out. Dalton was taken into administrative custody, facing the consequences of his actions. For Marcus, the relief was profound. He had been treated unjustly, humiliated, and accused, but now, with the truth revealed and the support of his sister, the weight of injustice lifted from his shoulders. The climax of the ordeal was not only about Marcus's innocence, but also about the exposure of Dalton's misconduct. Justice had been served in a decisive and public manner, and the community witnessed the power of integrity, courage, and determination. As the night drew on, Marcus and Angela stepped outside together. The cool evening air washed over them, a stark contrast to the oppressive tension inside the station. Marcus took a deep breath, feeling lighter than he had in hours, knowing that the nightmare was over. Angela placed her hand on Marcus's shoulder, her voice calm but resolute. This was not just about you, Marcus. It's about making sure that truth prevails, that injustice is challenged, and that no one else has to face what you went through. You're stronger than you know, and we've all learned something important tonight. Marcus nodded, a small smile breaking through. Despite everything, he felt a sense of empowerment. He had survived the humiliation, the fear, and the uncertainty, and now, with his sister by his side, he knew that he could face the future with confidence. For the first time that evening, the city seemed calm. The injustice had been confronted, the truth revealed, and the wrongdoer exposed. Marcus had endured the worst of fear and confusion, but the climax of the ordeal had proven that courage, family, and the pursuit of justice could overcome even the most unfair circumstances. Angela's decisive action and unwavering support had changed the course of the night. Dalton's downfall was inevitable, and Marcus's innocence was beyond question. The community, the officers, and Marcus himself now understood that fairness, integrity, and accountability must always guide actions, no matter the circumstances. As they walked away from the station together, Marcus felt a renewed sense of purpose. He had faced a moment of deep injustice, witnessed the power of truth, and seen firsthand the importance of standing up for what was right. The night that had begun in fear and uncertainty had ended with clarity, justice, and hope. The cool night air felt different as Marcus stepped out of the police station with his sister by his side. The sky was dark now, scattered with faint stars, but to him it felt brighter than it had all evening. He inhaled deeply as though finally free from the heavy weight pressing down on his chest. The handcuffs were gone, the false accusations cleared, but the memory of what had happened lingered like a shadow. Still, he was no longer afraid. He had his sister, Angela, and she had turned the impossible into justice. Angela gently rested her hand on his shoulder. "You're safe now, Marcus. No one can hurt you with lies anymore," she said softly. Her words were calm, but behind them was the steel of determination. She had faced down an officer who had abused his power, and she had proven to everyone that the truth mattered. The reporters were already outside, cameras flashing, microphones reaching forward as questions flew through the air. The story had spread faster than wildfire through the small town. Mayor's brother wrongfully arrested. Officer suspended for framing teen. Justice served at police station. People wanted answers, and Angela was ready to give them. She guided Marcus forward, standing tall before the press. "My brother Marcus was innocent from the beginning," she began, her voice clear and strong. "He was accused without reason, humiliated and framed by an officer who chose to misuse his authority. Tonight, that truth has been revealed. Marcus is free, his name is cleared, and our community must take this as a lesson. We must never allow injustice to take root. Every citizen deserves fairness, respect, and equal treatment, no matter who they are." The cameras clicked rapidly, capturing her determined expression. Marcus stood beside her quietly, his hands still trembling slightly but his heart swelling with pride. He wasn't just the mayor's younger brother anymore. He was a symbol of resilience, a reminder of why accountability mattered. Inside the station, Dalton was being processed for suspension. His badge had been taken, his gun locked away, and his future in the police force uncertain. For years he had hidden behind authority, intimidating others, but tonight he was the one exposed. Officers who once looked up to him now shook their heads in disappointment. His downfall was swift and complete, and his actions would forever mark his name with disgrace. The next morning, the story dominated the local news. On television, on social media, and in the papers, Marcus's ordeal was told again and again. People who had once doubted him were now rallying in support. Neighbors stopped by the Carter's home, bringing words of encouragement, food, and hugs for Marcus and his mother. His mother, who had cried so hard the night before, now held him close with tears of relief. "I told them you were a good boy," she whispered, kissing his forehead. "I told them you would never do such a thing, and now the world knows it too." Marcus nodded, his heart heavy but also lightened by the support around him. "I just want to move on, Mom. I don't want this to define me forever." Angela overheard him and placed a reassuring hand on his back. "It won't define you, Marcus, but it will shape you. You survived something unfair and you stayed strong. That means more than you realize." In the following days, Angela called for a formal investigation into the police department. She demanded stricter oversight, better training, and accountability for officers who misuse their power. She held town meetings where citizens came forward to share their own experiences. Stories of unfair treatment, of fear, of silence. For the first time, people felt like their voices were being heard. Marcus attended one of those meetings, sitting quietly in the back. He listened to people speak, some with trembling voices, others with fiery determination. He realized that what had happened to him was part of a bigger picture, a problem that needed change. His heart ached for others who had felt powerless, and he made a silent promise to himself that one day he would help them. At school, Marcus's classmates treated him differently. Some apologized for doubting him when they first saw the videos online. Others patted his back, telling him he was brave. Teachers gave him encouraging smiles, and his friends stuck closer than ever. Though whispers still followed him through the hallways, most of them now carried admiration instead of suspicion. One afternoon, his history teacher pulled him aside. "Marcus, I know this was a painful experience," she said kindly. "But I also see something in you now. Strength, determination. You could take this and turn it into something powerful, something that makes a difference." Those words echoed in his mind for days. Marcus began thinking about his future differently. For years he had dreamed of business and college, but now he also thought about law, justice, and fairness. He thought about becoming someone who could stand up for others, just as his sister had stood up for him. Angela noticed the change in him too. One evening, as they sat together on the porch, she asked, "Marcus, what's on your mind?" "You've been quiet lately." Marcus looked out at the street, the glow of streetlights painting the road. "I keep thinking, maybe I want to study law one day. Maybe I want to help people who go through things like I did. I don't want anyone else to feel powerless." Angela smiled, her eyes shining with pride. "That's a noble dream, Marcus. And I believe you can do it. You have the strength, the heart, and now the understanding. What happened to you was painful, but it can be the beginning of something greater." Marcus nodded, a new fire in his chest. He realized that his ordeal had not broken him. It had shaped him. He was no longer just the boy who worked at the gas station. He was someone who had faced injustice and had come out stronger, ready to make a difference. As the days turned into weeks, Dalton's case moved forward. The investigation concluded with his dismissal from the force. He faced charges for misconduct and evidence tampering. His downfall served as a warning to others who thought they could misuse power without consequence. The community began to heal, inspired by the courage of a teenager and the leadership of a mayor who refused to let injustice stand. Marcus's story spread beyond the town, reaching neighboring communities and even being discussed on national news outlets. It became a symbol of hope, of family strength, and of the truth's ability to shine even in the darkest of times. On the night of Marcus's 18th birthday, his family gathered around the dining table. There was laughter, cake, and music, but most importantly, there was love. Angela raised her glass in a toast. "To Marcus," she said proudly, "for his courage, his strength, and the future that awaits him. May he never stop believing in justice, in fairness, and in himself." Everyone cheered, and Marcus felt his heart swell with gratitude. He looked around the table, at his mother who had never doubted him, at his sister who had fought for him, at his friends who had stood by him, and he realized he was not alone. That night as he lay in bed, Marcus whispered to himself, "I'll make them proud. I'll make sure no one ever feels the way I did." The nightmare at the gas station had turned into a journey of strength and purpose, and while the scars of that night would always remain, they would remind him not of fear but of resilience, courage, and the power of truth. For Marcus, the future was no longer uncertain. It was bright, filled with possibility, and guided by the lesson that justice, no matter how delayed, will always find its way.